Hello guys, and welcome to today's video. Today we're back with a 9.1.2 walkthrough and sort of talk through, I should say, about the nodes and the bosses on each path, and hopefully this gives you a bit of a better understanding and the good counters for each path. So obviously you can see I've done each one, I've done all of the bosses. We will end with Storm X and the Kushala path, path with Kushala on, as we have a little bit of gameplay for those. As I mentioned in my last video, I was on holiday, so unfortunately I wasn't able to record every fight I did, because sometimes I was playing it while sort of relaxing on the beach, or I was playing it at different times, so unable to record each one, but I have recorded what I can, and hopefully that will be good enough for you guys. So let's start with the King Group path. So on the King Group path, we've got whenever a Mystic attacker knocks down the defender, the attacker has a 100% chance to gain an unstoppable buff for 6 seconds. If the attacker was already unstoppable, they instead gain an indefinite fury buff. The duration of your unstoppable effects are increased by 100%, but the defender doesn't take any damage unless they have an unstoppable or 70. They only take 25% of the damage you would do. Whenever the attacker knocks the defender down with a heavy attack, you have to use a special, or you take 50% of your max attack within 10 seconds. At the start of the fight, your block proficiency decays to 0, and at 0 becomes passively unblockable, but this resets when you have a striker, and that's really it. So good champions for this path are obviously champions with unstoppable, or who can knock down the defender quite a lot and gain that unstoppable. So obviously, the first one that comes to mind is Juggernaut. Obviously, unbelievable for this fight, because he is just constantly unstoppable. So that obviously lends itself very, very nicely to this path. You've also got quite a few champions like Kushala, Wiccan, Doom, Werewolf by Night, Symbiote Supreme is also quite useful, because you've just got to knock them down to get that unstoppable on you, and then the damage over time effects that those champions are doing anyway will mean that while you are unstoppable, you are doing that little bit more damage. So this path is relatively easy. Obviously, Juggernaut is just by far the best option, but Wiccan is also very, very good, and it shouldn't be too much of an issue for you guys. If you haven't got that Juggernaut, then remember, just keep knocking down and throwing your special attack as soon as you do knock down, so you don't take your max or 50% of your max health as direct damage, but so you can get that unstoppable. On the second path here, we do have the one beginning with Blade. This is the Scourge charges. This one was quite annoying. A few good counters for it, but not too many. So the attacker's defensive ability accuracy is reduced by 5% for each Scourge charge on the defender. The defender gains 10% special damage for each Scourge, and they gain 1 every 2 seconds, but this time is paused during special attacks, and for 4 seconds every time the defender's special attacks are punished. So obviously during specials and after them, as long as you punish it, you can pause this timer. To remove the Scourge charges, you just have to knock these champions down with a heavy. And every 8 seconds, the defender gains an unblockable buff for 4 seconds. Strikers deal a burst of damage equal to 150% of the damage dealt. And when the striker finishes a combo, the attacker gains a fury, increasing their attack. So really here, you just want to bring in champions who are going to throw a lot of heavy attacks, and who can either block unblockable attacks, so your champions like Mr. Sinister, Kushala, Kitty Pryde can be good, because obviously you can phase into it. That's who I used for this Blade fight and the Killmonger fight. Dr. Doom is very good as well, because obviously you have that easy use of a heavy. CGR good, just really whoever your best champions are. As long as you continue to heavy knockdown in this and punish the special attacks, you should be okay. When you look along the fight, Blade special 1 is dexable, Hulk special 1 is dexable, so is everyone's except for Joe Fixit's and Killmonger's is a little bit tricky, but it's still doable. So for, say, your Joe Fix-It, you probably want to bring in somebody like Mr. Sinister who can block that special attack, or who doesn't get hit too massively by those bleeds if possible, or just try and time it right, nullify the unblockable, however you want to play this. I'm not enjoying the Scourge charges, I will say. I'm not a massive fan of that. I know sort of the point, it means you can use any champion and there's not sort of one precise top option, but they're still a little bit annoying for me, and I'm not a massive fan. Killmonger and Joe Fix are obviously the two hardest on this path. I found Black Widow Deadly Origin quite annoying as well because of that evade she gets from her special 1. So you kind of want to keep her to a special 2 so that she doesn't evade you and put that annoying shock on you. So that does it for that path. And then finally, this is the path that we can go in and talk a little bit about it in the video. So whenever a science attacker activates a striker, they inflict a heal block. When the attacker dashes back, they gain a regen timer. Dashing back again grants the defender a regen passive. The defender goes unblockable for 4 seconds every 12 seconds, but you get that if you are out of range, but you only get it for 6 seconds. Whenever a science attacker gains a Fury effect, they gain a non-stacking Unstoppable. So here, it's champions with Fury. Hulk is very, very good. Spider-Ham can get a few Furies. Scorpion with the Venom synergy. Captain America Infinity War is another one off the heavy attack. So there are quite a few options here to use. So really, it's just using science champions who can get Furies with a striker so that you can inflict a heal block so that the regens don't do too much damage to you. The hardest fights here, in my opinion, were Warlock, and I think Guardian was a little bit frustrating because he just constantly went unstoppable, so because of his SP1, so it just made the fight that little bit longer. So that's that path. Again, we'll show that Kushala fight and the Storm Pyramid X last, as we'll go on to the video. So now we'll talk about the bosses. First, you've got Silver Centurion. Annoying fight, but not really too tricky. When the defender is struck, they have an armor up buff that with an armor up buff. So Silver Centurion does get armor ups. When you hit him, you're inflicted with a shock, so try and bring in champions who are shock immune. Beta Ray Bill was awesome for this because he pulverized the armor up and he was immune to shock. If the defender's not struck within 6 seconds, they're inflicted with Incinerate. This obviously plays into Silver Centurion's kit because an Incinerate and a shock make a plasma. The plasma does a lot of damage, so if you can bring in somebody shock immune, that is ideal. All of their special attacks are unblockable, so that's super annoying because they're a little bit hard to dex, I think, anyway. Don't bring in a champion who purifies because there is Cold Turkey. And when the defender finishes a special attack, they gain a debuff immunity passive for the 4 seconds. However, if you've got 2 debuffs already on him, then it's reduced to 0. So good champions for this is obviously you can use a Cosmic Attacker because their light attacks have a 50% chance to armor break. So I did bring in Beta Ray Bill, as I mentioned, a sort of really fun new champion. I also thought about bringing in Venom Pool, and I did, him and Shuri. So those 3 champions were my options. Shuri was obviously shock immune, as was Beta Ray Bill and Venom Pool. So all worked very, very nicely for this fight. The Silver Centurion wasn't too much of an issue, but if you haven't got those 3 champions, think about bringing in somebody who's shock immune or Incinerate immune, who is a Cosmic Attacker, and this fight should be pretty simple for you as long as you can get used to dexing his special attacks. Jabari Panther, another one not too difficult. I'm pretty sure I just used Kitty Pryde for this and she was awesome. So a lot of people saying that Kitty Pryde is just no longer that good in the game. There's a couple fights in 9.1 where she just destroyed it and made it super, super quick for me. The path on the last video, so the 9.1.1, that was super easy. And then finally, or not finally, but also this fight here. So whenever either champion gains a bar of power, the defender gains 2 stacks of cleanse. If the defender purifies or cleanses a debuff, they gain unblockable. Each time the defender purifies or cleanses a debuff, they gain a charge that increases their combat power rate. So really, basically, you just don't want to use champions who put debuffs on, because Jabari Panther will cleanse them. That will make her combat power rate increase by up to 60% if you get those 20 charges on her. So no debuffs for this. So that's why Kitty Pryde was so good. She either put on the passive Incinerates, or I just threw the special 2, which did a ton of damage. So she worked really well. Each time the defender is knocked down, they gain a cruelty passive, so they can do a lot of damage. And when you trigger a buff, it's immediately nullified, and they gain 25% bar of power. Finally, mutant champions receive a 30% base attack increase, and so Tekka champions gain 15%, whereas skiller champions receive -10. So as I said, great champions for this are Kitty Pryde, obviously. Bishop can work really well if you just keep him to the SB2, but that Incinerate will be purified, as will the stuns that he put on. I'm pretty sure the stuns also count towards this. So, although if they are purified, it will cause a passive, I'm pretty sure they still count. So you just have to be really careful. A lot of intercepts in this fight. That's why Kitty Pryde is so good. And champions who don't put on debuffs, you know. So you have got other options, but I would highly recommend champions who don't put on debuffs and who are mutant. So that does it for the Jabari Panther. And then finally, we'll move on to the gameplay for the Storm Pyramid X, but we'll talk about her buffs real quick. Every 5 seconds, the defender gains an indefinite prowess buff. While the defender has a prowess buff, knocking them down with a heavy attack will remove the prowess and grant you a 50% prowess. When the defender's knocked down, a 4-second timer starts. While active, each time the defender lands a hit or strikes into the block, they gain 30% bar of power. She is immune to shock effects. So somebody like iDoom, he will put on energy vulnerabilities and he will be able to remove those prowesses. But as a 6-star, there are better options. In the 7-star, they are immune to, or Storm Pyramid X is immune to effects of Nullify, Stagger, Fate, Seal, Buff immunity, etc. So that won't get rid of the prowesses either. So let's move into the fight and talk a little bit more about her there. So before we move on to Storm Pyramid X, let's quickly show you through the path with Kushala. So you can see I got hit, I got the Fury, and then I've just got this constantly never-ending Unstoppable. This will be quite quick so that we're not sort of showing too much time, but you just want to do as much damage as you can with the champion. You then go unblockable because I was already unstoppable when I gained the Fury. And basically this fight is very, very quick. Science attackers with Furies are by far the best, as we have already mentioned. Especially against Kushala, because obviously she's a mystic. You do that little bit more damage. I do think that Hulk is probably the best option along with Scorpion. I did use them both. But when you throw that striker, you're also getting the... Oh, I can't remember the thing now. We'll have to see it on screen. So I'm going to throw my striker here. The heal block, that's it. You get the heal block to stop her from having any sort of regen. And really, this fight just goes down very, very quickly with this rank 2 Hulk. Just continue to stun lock her, obviously. As you saw in the last video with Longshot, Hulk is a really great champion. So if you haven't already got him, then I highly recommend you ranking him up. You'll see here that I start to struggle a little bit, that I get lucky with that stun off the heavy and then finish her off. So now we'll move on to the Storm Pyramid X and talk about her in games. So some of the good counters for her. Kushala can be quite handy because she blocks unblockable effects. So the special attacks aren't doing a ton of damage. I used Iron Man because I found Iron Man, he got rid of the prowesses. He also does a lot of damage with those armor ups. But first I went in with Ant-Man Future, the old trusted, just a great champion all round. I think you have to push her to her SB2 really. This is where I messed up. I got quite lucky there that she wasn't unblockable, but then I get hit by the other special attack. But I managed to do a bit of damage while I'm just sort of trialing this fight with Ant-Man Future. I think the fight is... I wouldn't say it's relatively easy, but it's just a regular Pyramid X fight, but she has loads of prowesses. So you just got to take care of how you're fighting it. As I mentioned, keep her to her SP1 because that's the easiest one to dex, if you can. That's why Ant Future was good, because if I accidentally went over and caused her to gain 2 bars of power, his Surging Swarm or his Power Detonation did end up sort of bringing her back down to her SP1. So as I said, she is immune to shock, so it does take out sort of an Iron Doom. But again, you don't really need him, because as long as you're dexing that SP1, this fight isn't too tricky. I do go on to the Iron Man. I do end up bringing Iron Man as well, because he gets rid of those prowesses and obviously gains a bit more armor, which then means his damage is big. I think he probably is one of the best counters, him or Ironheart. I think Ironheart can be very, very good as well. But I like Ant-Man Future for this fight. I do think he is by far, or not by far, but definitely one of the best tech champions. Top 2 up there with Shuri. And yeah, that's basically it for the Storm Pyramid X fight. We've spoken about her in the actual video, and now we're showing a bit more of a bit of gameplay to go with her. Hopefully you guys are enjoying these videos, and if you are, please do like and subscribe. You'll see on screen here just quickly why you don't want to use the or don't want her to throw her SP2, because those shocks are huge. It do take you out, and that's the fight over. But as I was saying, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this 9.1.2 walkthrough. If you have, please like and subscribe. If you're new around here, hopefully this helps you out in completing all 100% of Act 9 or Act 9.1. And comment down below how far you are so far. I've got 1 path left, and then I'm 100% completed. So you will see that video in due time. Thank you guys very much for watching. Goodbye.